It's a sweet little number.
Yeah, rock and roll. Okay, welcome to another one of these. Chris and I spoke a couple of hours ago, and in between then, I've I've got a cold, or I've certainly got a cold coming on. So, but the microphone should be working properly. If it isn't, I'm just going to cry. How are you, Christoph?
I am all good, my friend. How about yourself?
Apart from Tottenham Hotspur, my life is entering a new nadir of joy.
Well, Tottenham will be the
Thrown away.
death of all of us, won't they?
It's not the hope that kills you; it's knowing that the hope that kills you kills you. That's from. Do you know who that's from?
Tell me.
From the guy that wrote "Slow Horses." Such a great
Oh,
line. Such a great line. So we witnessed. Let's try and keep it clean. We witnessed something pretty flipping awful last night, and so would you like to tell me about your in-body experience you had watching your favourite football team play
well,
Liverpool?
it was somewhat pretty pathetic, wasn't it? That you've got a team turning up for a semi-final of a cup, defending a 1-goal lead, thinking we are 90 minutes away from an appearance at Wembley, something that we don't do that often.
Yeah.
And 11 people took the field, and 9 of them were going through the motions of wearing the shirt without showing any commitment, enthusiasm, or ambition. And the only 2 who get a pass are again the young lad Archie Gray, at 18 years of age, who's been played everywhere but his natural position, and Jed Spence. And the rest of them were a concoction of hopelessness, patheticness, rubbish, and can we make up the word diabolicalness? They were just shambles.
I think a soupçon of mediocrity would
Yeah.
probably flatter a lot of them. I can't. I haven't even been through the numbers. I've not been through the stats for
What's
that
the
game.
point when?
Yeah, precisely. It's like your dog is lying there close to death, and you're saying to the vet, "Can we just take the bloods one more time?"
Do you know? You knew
You know where this is heading. It's not a good place, and I mean, yeah, go on, because there's
you
so
knew
much. There's so
from
much
the,
to.
from the outset when you saw that team sheet, and you've got Spence been played at right back, which we've all been calling out for because Porro's been poor this season. Then you had the new guy Danso starting alongside him. I didn't think he did too much wrong, in truth. Alongside him, you had Davis, but then you also had a utility man being deployed at left back. Yet you've got Regulon on the bench, and you've got Davis, a proper left back, playing centre back because of lack of options. But then behind them, you realise why we paid £13 million for the kid from Slava Prague or whatever it is from the Czech leagues. You pay £13 million, you get £13 million worth of quality.
Yeah,
In front of him,
do.
how can you seriously expect to win a football game with a midfield of Papa Matasar, Basuma, and Bentancur, who looked like he was about as fit to stroll around the beaches of Marbella with a football at his feet? And then in front of him,
was selling €16 tag Heuer watches.
No, that's Basuma on the streets of Playa de las Americas.
Tropical island in the
Yeah,
honestly, I thought Basuma was fundamentally dreadful. Really,
but then we moved forward, and then we had the non-existent dynamic captain. Without him, those players would have gone missing way before the final whistle. It was only his stewardship, his leadership, and his grit that kept those boys going. So we had the past it needs to move on. South Korean legend that how he wears the captain's armband is beneath me. Beyond me.
But in fairness, I mean, you I don't think you're factoring in all that he brings to the party. He brings a lot of
60,000 South Korean tourists every game.
He brings coach load upon coach load of his fellow countrymen who spend excessively, and he also brings an awful lot of what's the right word? A very apologetic demeanor when things aren't going right. I mean, if you're looking for a guy to say sorry, everybody else just take a step back to save him the effort.
But also to cry and to rub his eyes and to
Woe is
look
me.
completely effeminate, like a massive woofter. And
Now, hang on. Sorry, I used the word effeminate in relation to our players on somebody else's show, and the guy had to pull the stream because people lost their minds.
well,
Do you
I'm
think
not
our audience is ready for that kind of toxic masculinity commenting? I'm not sure.
I hope so, because I'm of the opinion that they're the people that we want following us. But so
Exactly.
we had this complete non-entity out on the left side. In front of him, in the centre, we had the biggest waste of money ever. Brazilian football's in the gutters, and we went and signed.
He has been systematically dreadful since the day he came in.
And I think,
And it occurred. Sorry, just to I will talk over you. I'm kidding. But what really struck me with the last couple of weeks, I've noticed that this sort of shift. And as I sort of say, some people you couldn't reach with a spiritualist. They're just convinced that Ange will turn it around and blah blah. And this is the problem, that a lot of these apologists or these what have they been called, Ange sexualists and all the rest of it, they don't have another gear. Their gear is, oh, this guy's come from Celtic, i.e. that's a recommendation.
Yep.
And I've been through the whole Rodney and ski wear joke too many times to give it another bloody airing. But the reality is they bought a pup. They bought a lemon, and we refused to buy it. Excuse me.
Again,
I put out a post on Substack I think it was about 2 months ago, and it was called "It's Over," because we could see it coming.
Again, it was our illustrious leader trying to be a smart ass, thinking that he could take a club in financial dire straits, Everton, and get one over on them and bring in a player for 20 million less than they were asking for. But he's been an absolute calamity in a Tottenham shirt. He offers no quality at all.
But in fairness, he's been dreadful for everybody he's played for.
Yeah, with the exception of Watford.
Yeah, except for a flare period in a lower league or a lower club or whatever you want to call it, he's never delivered properly in the Premier League, and that's the reality. It's not picking and choosing, because all of these apologists, they will tell us that, you know, that Celtic are a massive club. Yeah, they are in Scotland. We are Celtic of the Premier League, and that's the truth.
What made me laugh most about him was early in the game, he had an aerial duel with Virgil van Dijk.
When he was on the floor.
Virgil van Dijk catches him in the throat, but he goes down holding his forehead. And you're thinking, even when you get a throat slap, you make out that the sniper in Rosed's taken a headshot. The bloke is an absolute woofter of the greatest order.
He's a weapon. He's a weapon.
Well, he's a helmet, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, there are so many words to describe somebody so intellectually stunted and physically useless.
I hope the pulled vaginal cavities that he clearly suffered in the second half don't see him out for too long, because
I was really concerned about that, and I love the way that Ange takes all this in his stride, because obviously he's been in what does he tell us? He's been in this game for 60 odd years or 52 years or whatever the flim flam is, and he says, it's another one to throw onto the pile, mate. And I'm like, this is a pile that you are at the heart of. You know, you cannot just simply walk away and say, oh yeah, it's unfortunate. And this is the trouble. The people that we're up against when we talk about football don't understand football.
No.
They have no clue. Other clubs have injuries and this, that, and the other. But look at the injuries. Look at the nature of them. The devil is always in the detail. And if you look at the nature of the injuries, there's a guy who's got a sprained toe. He's discombobulated his left ear. There's a real, miasma of stuff going on. But with us, it's all the same stuff. And this clown, this absolute coach driver, looky-likey clown, does the old, my hammy in the 6-yard box and looks at the morons. And we've already covered this, so don't get heated. You fans of stupidity out there, the morons from Hibernian, the moron from Villa, all the guys that have never made the mark anywhere are all there chuckling. I mean, if there was an opportunity to I mean, we can't talk about firing squads because it's YouTube, it's this,
Upsets
that, and the other.
people.
People get very
Yeah.
it upset people. The idea of wildly applauding families and cartridges being dispatched into foreheads, it doesn't go down well in 2025. But the idea that these people are on a payroll, it's an obscenity because they're simply not fit for purpose. We're in
then,
the we're not even on the cusp. We're in the middle of a relegation scrap. And I saw a very interesting post on a forum that I'm on covertly this afternoon, and a guy was saying, "I hate to break it to you guys, but I actually think we're in the relegation fight at the moment." And he was getting pelters from his colleagues on there who were trying to dissuade him that things weren't as bad as they seem. Well, I don't know about you, but we don't win games. They must be as bad as they seem. Or are we living in a parallel universe?
I think the great thing for me was the realization on Pride Time British Telly at about 10 o'clock last night, ITV. So not one of these subscription channels on one of your Sky or TNT Sports, but at 10 o'clock on a Thursday night, you've got Jamie Carragher, Michael Dawson, and who else was it? One of the other Redknapp, absolutely tearing Tottenham a new arsehole, and quite rightly so. Everything that Redknapp and Carragher said between them, we might not like them as individuals, but they were 100% right. We're a team with no backbone. We got no spirit. And on the big occasion, we're never going to turn up.
That's a point that I think is worth making, because none of us, well, few of us, shall we say, would admit to warming to any of those characters. However, it's really difficult to counter what they said, because what they said was absolutely true, correct, and right. And Spurs didn't show up, but not only did they not show up, but they failed to show up in the same way. I mean, for those of you joining us late, this is the side that beat us by a lesser margin in a Champions League final. Now, I know this.
Yeah,
I mean, I know this game was important to everybody on the basis that it's nice to have a bit of silverware along the way, but you've got to look at the way that Arne Slot set up his side. And I don't want to hear about injuries, because I just genuinely
part of the
feel
game. Injuries are part of the modern game.
Exactly. And I don't want to hear about, we're having to play every 3 days. I don't care. That's the setup. Everybody starts moaning when the squeeze is put on them over Christmas, and now we're out of Christmas, and Ange is looking forward to not having to play any Europa League games, so the heat is off him, and he's got a game in 48 hours. I'll be in the whole end, by the way. If you spot me, you can win a prize. But I just find it absolutely baffling that more people, shall we say, especially if closer to home, aren't calling this fraud out. We were the vanguard of the zeitgeist on this. We were right there saying, don't think he's up to the task. And the amount of pelters that we took from unknowing, unworldly people who told us that we were anti-Australian, we were anti-this, that, anything they can throw at us. Oh, you should be in prison. Oh, you're not saying nice things. You should be in prison. And we were right. Well, and a lot of you, you've lost your ability to post silly comments on this channel because you were wrong. How does that feel? It must absolutely sting.
People don't like fact, and they don't like common sense, and they don't like ultimately being wrong. And more and more top flight managers and top flight pundits are now starting to call this guy out. And he was interviewed shortly late after the ITV concluded broadcasting, and the interviewer said to her, "This is what Jamie Redknapp had to say. This is what Jamie Carragher. Don't care, mate. Doesn't bother me. Everybody's entitled to their opinion." So you've got former professional footballers publicly lambasting and slating and criticising you in front of a TV audience of millions. And you just
would worry me. And I mean, I've made the point over the years, and I've only been doing this for 20 years or something. I've made the point that stupid people you should never pay any attention to, because stupid people will always come up with unsolicited nonsense. That's how the world works. But whether you like them or not isn't important. But if you've got Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher and Jamie Redknapp saying you suck, a dead dingo's doo-doo, you need to take a moment. But the trouble is, we've got a coach, and I use that word advisedly with thick Dundee. We've got a coach who was asked and let slip in the post Liverpool game press conference that he hadn't factored in who he was up against.
That's
And the
just
reality,
absolutely naive, isn't it?
how in the name of,
And
Nelly Furtado do you pull off coming out with something like that?
did he honestly think that we would go to Anfield and defend a 1-goal lead? When you look at the midfield he put out, there was no creativity. There was nobody who could run past a man. There was nobody who could distribute a ball. And up front, you had Kulusevski completely lost out on the right side, and every time he tries to get it, he does the same thing and concedes possession. Surely you should have been starting with Kulusevski in the middle. You should have been looking at giving Mikey Moore a run out, because he's been more proactive and shown more endeavour and ambition in recent cameos than Son has shown in the last 10 games. And
100%,
then
1000%.
you need to be looking at what your opportunities are on the right side. And I was there for that Elfsborg game, as we discussed. And the guy who came on, the Nigerian sounding guy, Ajayi or something.
Yeah, the young kid. Yeah.
He took the ball. He dropped his shoulder. He was prepared to take people on. He was prepared to.
Which is what you've been saying. You've been saying for months. And referencing characters like Aaron Lennon, who were disruptive, which is a great word people love these days. But where is the disruption? And one question I would ask you, Chris: how bad do you think? How irreconcilable do you think the relationship is between James Maddison and Thick Dundee?
Doesn't exist, does it? It doesn't exist.
No.
And you look at that team from last night as die-hard, passionate, caring Tottenham fans, and you would say Kulusevski, you would continue to see in a Tottenham shirt, good player. He'll be gone in the summer.
He's exhausted though as well. Don't forget. I mean, this guy's playing. This guy's playing twice a week, giving it his absolute utmost, giving us gangbusters, physically. But you could see it against Liverpool. He's running out of paces.
So you would keep him. You could say au revoir to Richarlison as he's shit. He will never be anything but shit, and he's been shit since day one. So he can go.
Yeah.
Son
has he's been shit since he fell out of his mother.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Son, we won't overlook what he's done in the past, being a great servant for the club for 11 years. Good goal
Credit
scorer.
In the bank. Credit in the bank.
Never get over the relationship he had with Kane. Kane probably made him look better than he actually is because of his ability to drop deep and put balls in. But Son can do one in midfield. I've always thought there might be something around Papa Matasar as he's still young. But what is he? He's just an athlete. He's just a tall, lean, skinny guy who can run around the pitch. He's not a passer. He's not a defender.
The word I was going to say, the word you're looking for is he's a skinny. That's what he is. And for those of you, I can't remember the name of the film. Might have been Black Hawk Down or something. That word is used, and we should offer that under advisement. But yeah, he's a skinny, is what he is, and he does pull out the occasional, showboat, shot. Scored a couple of 1 or 2, 3 goals that are of interest, but he is, and this is one of the massive problems under Ange. He needs coaching.
Yeah, so you've got him, you've got Basuma, who looked good at Brighton, has been absolutely piss poor and shocking. He needs
unreliable, utterly unreliable.
So we need to, and he's only got 2 brain cells, and they can't work together.
I thought his cameo. I mean, I can't help but think of Tony because, again, folks, unfortunately, Tony's a bit under the weather at the moment, and we wish him well. But yeah, that was a great cameo from Basuma in the Muppet show Christmas Carol. I thought he did exceptionally well. But for Spurs, he's not been as exceptional. And we had that thing, and I'm going to say it again because I'm really boring. He got caught doing that. What was it? Nitro gas in a nightclub routine. And for 2 games, he was, every time he touched the ball, he was looking over at Ange. Did I do all right, Dad? And all this sort of thing. It was like a Dick Emery sketch. And then it all went down the pan again.
So that leaves us Bentancur. He's a very average player. Juventus don't get really good players specifically for that sum of money. What does he do? He's not the attacking midfielder. He doesn't sit deep. He can't put his foot on the ball. He doesn't control play. He's just a very average player. You move to the back. Archie Graham go give a free pass because I think he can come out of this holding his head high and with some credit, as Jed Spence. And the question with Spence is, why has it taken so long for him to feature in or around the first team?
Should I tell you why? Do you know what my suspicion is? Bear in mind, I know nothing about nobody. I think that Ange didn't like him. I don't think that Ange cared for him. I think he saw him as one of these guys that's wandering around with the headphones on constantly, doing the whole, yeah, man, I just spent, £1,000 on a haircut. I've just had my eyebrows weaved. And I'm not suggesting it's racist, okay? Just because the fella's black, it doesn't mean we have to involve that in everything. But I think that Ange didn't rate him as a human being. And we got that weird situation whereby we had a footballer that wasn't getting minutes for us, who had a contract extension. And I don't know if it was that or it was someone else or a conversation that went on, but Jed was acting like a grown-up all of a sudden. And we had those instances where you pointed out one that there was one man that had his arm around Ange when they were at Bournemouth and had his arm around him again. No, leave it, Gaffer, and all the rest of it. And he has been doing a lot of positive body language over the last few months. And now that's actually come through. Now he's been a full thing. And he's actually delivering. And he's looking like the player that we were bored to death by a certain element of the fan base telling us that he was going to be a rock and roll star. And he actually looks good. And I think we're getting a bang for our buck from him. But Ange clearly didn't rate him, didn't rate him at all, and he's literally only come through. And I would say that there's a cigarette paper in Ange's head between Jed Spence and Sergio Reguilon. Now, I'm not a Reguilon fan, but I take your point completely. From a tactical point of view, against the personnel that we had, why on earth wasn't he involved in that game? And I'm not a fan. I'm not a defender of him. I don't like him. I wish he was at some other club. But I think that would have been the right player under those conditions for us to have involved in the game. So it all goes back to Ange.
Yeah, taking those snippets away. So moving forward, Danso, it was his first game. He looked a bit of a unit, looked prepared to take the ball out of defence. We've got to give him more time. But out of that, you think the only ones that I would be building a club around are Gray, are Danso, are Bergvall, are Spence, are Kulu, and Mikey Moore. So that's 6 players. The rest of them, the so-called senior pros, they can do one. They've all got weak mentalities. They're paid hundreds of thousands of pounds.
And they come across like spent forces.
Yeah, they look like they're doing us a favour by being out there. And you think, what are sports psychiatrists doing with these guys? Because it's been called out time and time again. And then a moment of crisis, don't call on any Spurs players as they'll fail you. And we can never raise ourselves to the occasion. Either we don't like the 12:30 kickoff on Saturday, we're still suffering from the Friday night before, or we don't like the 4:30 kickoff on Sunday because we'd prefer to be at home with our families having Sunday roast, or we don't like Monday night kickoffs because we're picking the kids up from the Bouncy Council Club. Wednesday's a bit difficult because we like to watch our other club.
It's like that Alan Partridge sketch where he says, yeah, you can call me day or night. Or night, I'm your man. Obviously, Tuesdays are tricky. Wednesdays, certainly not before 3:00 in the afternoon. And he goes on and on and on. So in actual fact, day or night turns out to be about 6 hours a week. And I've had suspicions about that. There's been significant questions about the mentality of Tottenham players in the recent months.
They haven't got one. And you think you put these guys alongside the likes of Kevin Sinfield, the rugby player, who's run all these ultra marathons for his mate Rob Burrows, who sadly passed away. There's a man who represented his nation, elite level athletes, and he has just gone through the pain barrier to succeed. None of ours would be capable of that. They're all. There's
always an excuse. There's always an excuse. Oh, it's my poor finger. Oh, it's my poor toe. My poor dog died. I might need this. I might need that. There's no commitment. I mean, how long Now, I don't know. I didn't go to medical school, and you can spot guys like me that didn't go to medical school a mile off. But how long does it take Romero to come back?
Well, who cares? He's rubbish.
Don't tell me. Yeah, but don't tell me he's not dragging his feet, because
He doesn't
I'm
want to
getting
do that.
massive.
And do you
No,
know
I've
what?
got massive. Sorry, go on.
Towards the end of the game last night, this guy we bought in the week before from Bayern Munich must have been thinking, "Thank Christ, there's not an obligation for this club to buy me, because I don't want to be anywhere near this club." And he must be thinking, "Wonder what time the first plane back to Munich International Airport leaves," because we bought on a bloke. We did not put a single ball into the box for him. We didn't have a outlet to supply him. He must have been. And in the second half, I messaged you and the others in the group chat. There was a period in the second half, the camera pins in and he's going like that with his hands, meaning push up, push up. And he looks over to the right to Kulu, and Kulu's doing the same. So they both start running forward, and they look behind them, and Son's sat on the bench doing his crossword, having a Capri Sun. The centre backs
having a sunny delight.
the centre backs are in the middle of completing a crochet, and you're thinking, this team does not know what it's supposed to do, and that all goes back to that dingo on the touchline who needs putting down, Ange Postecoglou.
There isn't a sane argument for chopping one of your hands off. Pick whichever hand you like and just say, yeah, I'm going to chop that off. There isn't a sane argument for doing that. Neither is there a sane argument for keeping Postecoglou at Spurs. He is officially the worst. And this isn't about, I don't know, Australians are big. It isn't about fat shaming, although he is fat. He is Australian. So come at me if you've got a problem with that, because, I didn't make the rules. But there is something going on. And I've maintained it for a long time. We know how far down the batting order he is when Daniel was looking for a new coach and the door slammed in his face and people put the phone down. He knows the sheer unchecked misery of going back to the marketplace. Because I don't even think that Gareth Southgate would come near us. I think any manager worth half a biscuit, forget their salt, would say, right, okay, well, what I'm going to need is I'm going to need 500 million quid, and I'm going to need you and you and you to go, shh, and let me get on with it. And Spurs will never let that happen. And if you think that's me being crazy, we've already seen that evidenced, because they didn't let Antonio Conte have any money and go, shh. And they didn't do it for Jose Mourinho. And those two gentlemen, whether you like them or not, nobody cares, have tremendous blockbuster box office CVs.
100%, yeah.
And we've now got this guy who is, utterly unemployable. And it's easy to chuck around the word fraud and all the rest of it. I don't hate the guy. I don't warm to him, but I have no personal dislike to him. I just see him, and I saw him, as many of us did many months ago, as being utterly useless. But he's like the ultimate. He's like the ultimate DEI hire. You saw him. He ticks the Australian box. Wow, thanks.
You saw him last night, and he looked like a man who needed putting down. When he was behind the camera, there was no eye contact with the reporter. He does this thing where he scratches his face.
What the hell is that? He suddenly gets some like eczema or whatever it is.
The cough has disappeared, but now he's got this scratching fetish.
Well, I think he was advised. I think he was given a little bit of media training by somebody at the club.
It must have been a tiny little bit. Yeah, you're right.
Is there any chance you can stop with a when you're speaking to people, because it's weird? Normal human beings, there are tribes up in hills somewhere on the other side of the planet who communicate with each other like that. But here in the West, we don't communicate making grunts and burps and noises and throat clearing. And I think they said to him, mate, you got to stop that. I don't know what they do in the bush, but they don't do it in N17. And so he's then developed this weird tramp sort of thing. It's like, have you been sleeping in a skip? And people will listen to that and go, oh, it's really offensive, but it's not normal. We're sat here. I'm not scratching myself like some sort of weird baboon that's got an infestation.
But you are wearing a Christmas jumper.
this actually, I'm not going to give you the full benefit of it because you're a very cynical person, but it's got a Bigfoot all over it.
All right, okay.
I'm very pleased with this, and I've got another cardigan because I only own two, because you only need two in this life. I've got another one which has the pattern of the carpet in the Overlook Hotel, but that is a bit of a traffic stopper because obviously it's like orange and kind of burgundy. So I wear that very rarely. But yeah, this has got Bigfoot all over it, which I quite like, and it's quite pertinent, as you would know, you Tyrannosaurus Sex. But yeah, I just find the whole thing with the face scratching thing is just very erratic.
And
Very
you look
erratic.
at him, you look at him again, and this is something else they picked up on yesterday during the game on the touchline, and he's just standing there with his hands in his pockets, shaking his head, and you're thinking, when we go 1-0 down, he's got to be thinking, well, we have got to score. We've got to score. So why did he send the exact same team out in the second half that finished the first half?
He's done that a lot.
There's your opportunity. There's your opportunity to get in there, and you are clearly working with mentally fragile individuals.
I'm from Hibernian, mate. Don't knock it.
So you're not probably reaching out to many Mensa members. So was he throwing the Fs and was he throwing the Jeffs into them at half time? What was his team talk?
But think of
flatters.
But you think of your average kind of Premier League coach. Sorry, Ange, I know this is going to come as a shock when you hear this sort of stuff back. But when you see that standard of coach, when you've got to go down, like David Moyes, for example, not a terrible coach, he will be screaming and waving his arms and berating a defender that's near him and saying, tell him to. And there's a real energy and emotion and passion there. And this is one of the things that we've got, that all of these nitwits, that's the kindest way I can describe them, because I don't want this to be pulled, but all these nitwits defending this guy on the basis that we're not allowed to say that he's morbidly obese, on the basis that we're not allowed to say where he comes from, because that's racist or whatever it might be. But he is soulless. And I, like I said to you, I never bought into the whole Australian thing the first time around. Jason Donovan, Neighbours, Home and Away, Prisoner Cell Bouquet. I was bored senseless by it. I found no charm in any of that rubbish.
If you tell me tell me you never bought into Danny or Kylie Minogue, you're a liar.
In my own way. but at least there was a kind of joie de vivre about it. He has no joie de vivre. He's joie de... Oh, yeah, all right, mate.
As I say, he reminds me of Les Patterson.
Yeah. I saw one of his shows, and I can't remember what the word he was. It was like something about that's it. He was saying about his wife, Lady Patterson, was wearing a dress, and because he was doing the old piss thing with her, he was made of chiffon, and there was obviously spittle firing out into the first three rows. He goes, "It's a great word, that chiffon," and he got another round of applause with it. But that's what we're up against. But no, we're maniacs, and he's actually a charming character who's going to pull us through the rainbow. And we're out of one cup, and there's two more for him to be binned from.
I'll ask you one question. If he left Tottenham, name me another side in the Premiership that would employ him.
That is the perfect question, because the answer is, are you out of your mind? That's
Absolutely.
the answer.
Yeah, nobody
even
touches that man with a barge pole.
No, I mean, because the thing is as well, you get managers who aren't brilliant, but they have a discernible talent. So, you might have, we all know the names of the thing. I mean, I don't keep a bloody note, but, you have certain managers and you say, well, actually, you could bring him in if you needed a bit of organisation, like Sean Dyche, for example.
Yeah.
There's a guy who can get things regimented and maybe like spare you from a relegation scrap. That's his talent. And we've seen with Nuno, didn't happen at Spurs, but who cares? Because nobody happens at Spurs. We've seen what he's achieved at Nottingham Forest, and that again, it has brought a regimental form of style to that club, and they're scoring goals and they're whizzing and firing at the top of the table, and we are at the bottom of the table. And the idea that you would indulge a guy who has driven the vehicle, I don't want to labour the coach driver joke, but he's driven the vehicle in the wrong flipping direction. Oh, no, he's going to turn it around. We're still winning 2 cups. You've got to be out of your mind.
I tell you, when he started, he played this gung-ho, inverted fullbacks football that blew people away initially. And people are like, wow, this is good. But that died in the Chelsea game. And ever since then, we're not playing attractive football. We're not scoring goals, but we're conceding goals. So Ange ball is long dead. What do we describe the current style of football as, other than excrement?
Fiasco light?
Well, there is no plan to it.
Lite. I mean, as you say, he did do okay for a bit, but this is where you then have to, again, try to commune with the dead and try to get them to understand that there was a new manager bounce. And if you don't think it's a new manager bounce, that can be comprised of a number of different factors. And one of those factors can be that he did very well, and then he was worked out. And then everybody decided that all we need is a bit of a low block, and we can nullify these clowns, because these players are running the full length of 2/3 of the pitch and 2/3 of the pitch back and forth, and they're getting tired. And he's got very fit players, but if you time it right, and I think that's the secret of many of our opponents' success, because we've had games where we've had a ton of possession but haven't won because they've caught us on the break. They've been cleverer, swifter, of fleet of foot and mind, and we have just been looking a bit dumb.
I think our greatest coaching asset, Chris Davis, left the club to go and take over as Birmingham manager, and from that point onwards, we didn't have a decent coach in the whole coaching network.
Yeah,
he's flying, probably go win Birmingham the title this season, get promoted, but we've got a bloke leading the club who cannot motivate them, cannot get the players up.
He's a cretin. He's a cretin, and people should be. It is empowering to be judgmental and to have an opinion and to have a prejudice. I'm prejudicial against stupid people. I'm prejudicial against inept people. And you say, oh, that's terrible. It's only terrible if you have this woke mind virus. In the real world, if you're stood there in the coffee shop and the guy that is doing your coffee is going, and there's stuff everywhere and there's drips off his fingers and thumbs and all that, he's got to go. If you can't pour a coffee and get me in and out of the shop in a reasonable length of time, Starbucks or whoever it is, they're not interested in hiring you. Oh, it's diversity, equity, inclusion. No, I just want a hot coffee, all of it in the cup, none of it spilt, and I want to be in and I want to be out. And that's how it works. And this guy cannot deliver basic requirements for the Premier League. Hugely out of his depth.
But he's supported by people equally so, like the video that you shared with me the other day of Johan Lang. Oh my God, was there a
well, as you said,
militia?
You said about that, which is absolutely spot on as usual. You said that was a buzzword compendium. That it was all those LinkedIn buzzwords. Oh, we're looking to make headway in this, blah, 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 and we're symptomatic of that, and we're forward thinking and looking to the future. And it was all this meaningless, empty speak. And this is coming from a guy. This is coming from a guy who, once you strip back all of the navy blue suit and he sat there with his haircut and all the rest of it, he's talking about a club that teasing the relegation zone.
But what made me laugh about the video that he did and the subsequent press stuff is he named 3 players that will be immediately in first team contention next season. He named Will Lancashire, who we've given a minute to, scored a goal, got sent off, never seen again, now on loan at West Brom.
Yeah.
He named the new South Korean lad who arrived at the club, got shipped out to QPR. Who knows how that's going to play out? And then the one that I found most baffling is he named young Luca Gunter, the goalkeeper that everybody's been raved about. So if Luca Gunter...
There's so much to look forward to.
So if Luca Gunter is immediately available and challenging for a first-team spot next season, why have you just signed Kinski?
In a hurry? in a
And
hurry.
why
You
have you
brought
got?
him forward.
So you got
Yeah.
Vicario coming back from injury. You've just signed Kinski. You've got Brandon Austin, and I think in the 3 games that he's played, he's not put a foot wrong. And I dare say, in my opinion, he's looked more reassured than Kinski has when he's come across as got rid of the ball. So you've got 3 goalkeepers, yet you've got a 4th one who's going to be challenging for the first team's jersey next year. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It doesn't make any sense. But what he's selling is his product is hope. Because don't get me wrong, this organisation, ENIC, forget DFC and all that rubbish that you grew up with, because that's in the dustbin. ENIC understand how infantilized the fan base is. And they know that the fans, your average fan on social media platforms, blah, blah, they want hope. They don't want reality. They don't want criticism. They don't want analysis. They want hope.
Remember,
and so they say, "Oh well, we've got." Sorry, but they'll say we've got 3 stars in the chamber. You know, it's like a game show. They've gamified everything because they've gamified everything. Credit scores, they're gamified. Nothing is just like as it ought to be. And and it's like watching. You know, we've got 3 stars in the chamber coming next season, and it's like watching some shite version of Gladiators.
Well, hope sets you free. Remember that. Hope sets you free. As Red found in the Shawshank Redemption when he went through Rita Hayworth to escape.
Red was here. Red was here.
Yeah, that was Andy Dufresne, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that should be they got rid of our Latin. They should have replaced it with Red was here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Or
but
Andreas de Facre could have been replaced was there was once a football club here.
Yeah. But they have replaced fact and common sense and encouraging people to think about things. You can't think about things, just be happy. Why can't you be happy? They've replaced all that with hope. So what's happening at Tottenham Hotspur? Well, we've got another Korean in box number 3. We've got another, and there's no substance to it whatsoever. It's like some weird, twisted, deeply unpleasantly sexualized game show. It's just odd. It is utterly odd. Because
I don't get the whole Korean thing. That I don't know how far away South Korea is, but I'm guessing
massive racist.
I'm guessing a fair few hours. So these passionate South Koreans pay all this money for an airfare for South Korea, travel, I don't know, 10, 12 hours across the world to come and watch a shit Tottenham team inevitably lose.
What can it mean?
Their poster boy not to touch the ball and spend the whole time running down the touchline signing match day programs. And how can they go home with that?
The only poster boy in history to suffer from paper cuts. I mean, he is so substandard and like these days. But you listen again, it's just infantilization. You listen to the TV and Matterface was going on the other day, and Sonny's making life very difficult for the guy on the. And I'm thinking, he's not making life difficult for anybody. You know, even when he leaves his hotel room, he's made his bed. He's not even making life difficult for the maid.
You think about some of the captains of the past when you think about, I don't know, Patrick Vieira, Roy Keane, Steve Bruce, Gary Pallister. Yeah. You've had some proper shithouses. You've had some proper shithouses, haven't you? Some blokes who would.
And we've got a guy that would be better off served handing out flowers at a memorial.
Well, I think he'd be better off with a pom-pom and lycra, because that's about the greatest sweat he's likely to work up anytime soon.
You can probably buy a Hyung Son Min pom-pom and lycra kit in a fan shop in
what you choose to do in your own time, in your own homes, your own discretion.
Listen, how I spend my money, I don't care what other people think. I'm happy. And that's what they keep saying. Why can't you be happy? And then I say I'm happy, but it's a bit of a kink. And all of a sudden I'm the outsider.
All right.
It's very difficult to process, I have to tell you. So where do we go from here? We're playing Aston Villa at the weekend.
Me personally, to the pub.
I'm going to the methadone clinic because they're the only people that can help me
to do things for Turkish Anglo-British relationships.
But I mean, I think Villa are going to smash us.
Oh, absolutely.
I couldn't imagine a better time to play Spurs. Honestly,
if we go lose, which inevitably we are, rather than let the same old charlatans run out and not even break a sweat and foul us,
exactly.
just put the kids out there. Put
Yeah.
people who want to prove themselves. Put people who are excited. Put people who've got high energy levels.
Did
And
you
if
see? Did you see Ange's presser today? I only put it out a little while ago, but I can't remember if it was in the main body or the embargo. There's 2 embargo bits afterwards, but he was actually doing this sort of, and it's part of that campfire thing. But again, I don't buy into this wizardry of, well, I could tell you a few things, mate. I've been around the block, you know. And he was saying that he didn't want to overexpose the kids. And you just said there, which everybody
you've
agrees with.
absolutely
Everybody
broken,
agrees
I'd
with.
be great.
Welcome to Rape Crisis. How can I help you today, Angelos?
But this guy has broken 10 players, which
Yeah.
I think is now up to 11. We got 1 back, 1 goes in, whatever. But these kids are actually showing themselves to be having a future. They're prospects. But he's saying, "Oh, I don't want to overexpose them, mate." Well, do you know what, mate? You might want to rethink that, because I don't think, given the circumstance, and this is the only time I'll give him any wiggle room on this, I am utterly convinced with his form in Celtic for breaking players that it would be a pertinent moment to give these kids meaningful game time.
Yeah.
And he won't do it. He won't. He said this afternoon or this morning, he said that he won't do it. And do you know why he says stuff like that, and why he says that he doesn't really look into Liverpool before he plays them? Because he's incompetent. You know, he should be selling Bovrils. If you were going to get a job for that guy in the stadium, he should be selling, and they probably don't even do that anymore. You know, because it's a meat-derived product, and they're just looking for stuff that contains overwhelming amounts of estrogen and soy. But yeah, that's where he should be. That's his number. But Pete, you say that, and people go, "Oh, so offensive, so offensive." But he's a klutz. He's a klutz.
Yep.
He's driven this club to the foot of the table. That's the direction on the front of the bus. It doesn't say we're going to Morecambe. Doesn't say we're going to Cromer. It says the foot of the table. And that game against Liverpool, like I say, for anybody joining us late, they beat us by a greater margin than they did in the Champions League final. Absolutely shameful. And I don't think this squad is great because of the injuries, which I put down to him. Not all of them, but some of them, too many of them. And that squad, even decimated, I think that a decent football man, somebody who understood what they were doing, opposed to us, they come from the heroin league or the Nakayoya building league or whatever it is. I think a decent football man would know how to improve things.
100% agree. And,
you know, his substitutions, his hand wringing, the staring at the floor, and the lack of communication. There's no shouting. I mean, love him or hate him. Look at Harry Redknapp. He's always screaming, "Oi, oi, oi, fatty, move, go up the top there," and all this. You're getting engagement and you're getting guidance. And with this guy, he's just wandering around like he's killing time.
But the problem is, H, that you need a change of voice in the dressing room, and that's not just his voice. It's your Montgomerys, your Masons, everybody with him. So the longer you hear this voice that you start losing faith in, and you start no longer believing, and you lose another game and another game and another game, you think I require divine intervention to help me move forward, because this bloke is largely accepted. Well, stats say he's the worst Tottenham manager ever.
Oh, it's not up for debate. I mean, this isn't like you and I going out on a limb and saying, well, we really don't care for this guy, and so that's why he should be sacked. He should be sacked, and as you quite rightly pointed out, nobody else is going to employ him. He's never going to come back to this division again. That's guaranteed, because nobody would be so stupid. And that's nothing to do with Spurs. It's nothing to do with anything. It's just to do with the fact that it's the Peter principle. He has been promoted well beyond his levels of competence. And that doesn't sound nice. I understand it doesn't sound nice, but you got to call it as it is.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, so, but they need to get rid of him, but they can't get rid of him because they know if they do get rid of him, they're going to bring in Ryan Mason, who has got no surprises.
No.
And he's one of those voices that everybody's like they've heard to death. And this is the thing: you've got this sort of attritional business that's going on at Spurs at the moment, which again, because it's a little bit complicated, a lot of people aren't even talking about. Where, as you said there, absolutely, you've got the voices which have been proved to be of no use because you're 14th, 15th, 16th, wherever you are in the division. And they're telling you, yeah, we're going to play Villa on Sunday, so let's do it like this. And even the dumbest footballer on God's green earth is thinking to himself, well, hang on a minute, this Ryan Mason fella, this clown from Hibernian, he got that. Those guys got me revved up for the Liverpool game. They got me revved up for the Bournemouth game, and we flatlined. Even the thickest guy on the planet is going to say, well, hang on a minute, these guys, they don't know what they're doing.
And it remains that there's plenty of people who take the opportunity to manage Tottenham. Despite the crisis and the turmoil we find ourselves in, we remain a big club. And there's ways of thinking outside of that proverbial box. One came to me this morning. Yaya Touré's just got his full FIFA training qualifications. He was previously he was doing his badges in our youth team, and he was the youth team manager. Well, what's the risk of saying to him, Yaya, we're in a bit of a fix. Why don't you come back to the club for the next 4 months, see how it works out? It's a different voice to Ryan Mason. It's a man who's a proven winner, who won God knows how many titles with Man City, was phenomenal at Barcelona, and managed
just a man.
But and played on the internet. And that he's a leader. He's a man. If you're in a fist fight,
that's the problem.
I think alongside you.
Yeah, if you're coming out of a lift, right, you're going down into the car park, you're coming out of the lift. He's one of the 5 guys you want in the lift with you.
Yeah,
who's prepared to step out under the flickering lights. You know, sort of Jason Bourne styley, Jason Statham styley, and say, right, I'm going out and I'll front it. I'll come with you. But I don't think this club likes men. I think they regard them as a bit. So what we've got, instead of real men, we've got, with his Charlie Chaplin hair, which I'm allowed to say, I know he's in a car crash, but I'm allowed to say that he's got a Charlie Chaplin haircut. We've got Ryan, who does no good. Can't manage, can't coach, but he's there because he's a supergrass. He is the Bertie Smalls of Tottenham, feeding back to Baldy what's going on. Is everybody all right in the dressing room? Yes, Daniel. That's weird, and that's why this club is so dysfunctional.
And that that notion that I keep on hearing from everybody and anybody, why shouldn't we not get rid of Ange because there's no one out there to replace him? So would you have maintained letting the captain of the Titanic sail that vessel had you realised you're about to collide with an iceberg?
But this again, because I'm not even steering this back, I'm just pointing it out because it's so bloody obvious. This goes back to the naivety of that woke mind virus where you say, well, why would I leave my wife? Why would I leave my girlfriend? If it isn't working, what are you doing?
Yeah,
the insanity of putting up with mediocrity and you know, not attacking anybody in particular, but it could be you that's mediocre. You could be part of the problem. That's a viable thing. Why are you prepared to just say, well, what do you want me to do? Go and date Miss World then? You can't live in a miserable, no good setup. That doesn't work for anybody. But no, we're going to keep Ange because there's nobody knocking on the door who's got like a locker room full of medals and blah, blah. Oh, hang on a minute. We did employ guys that had tremendous CVs and they didn't work either. You need a fresh voice. You need to get rid of this guy. He's a bum. He doesn't understand what he's doing. He's as somebody said, I think everybody's saying it these days, but he's out of his depth in a puddle. And the idea that you persist with that stupidity, that mediocrity, and defend it by saying, well, I didn't realize you hated all Australians. No, just this one because he's a bit too Bob.
100%. Yeah, completely agree.
So I think we're hitting the witching hour mark. What is your prediction for the Villa game?
We will not win that game if based on the fact that any coach of any quality has outcoached Ange. We're going up against Unai Emery,
Yeah.
Who has won?
Who got it wrong against us previously,
Yeah.
and I think that's possibly stung him. I
And
think he's well aware that he got that wrong.
Unai Emery, with backed by an ambitious board and a club that their revenue only just pays for their salaries, so they are putting everything back into the club. Unlike Spreadsheet FC, who have 43% of their revenue going out the door by means of salaries. So I think it will be 3-1 to Villa.
I would say that is very close to the bet of the day, and I would go for Spurs to score once, and that'll be it. And then they'll score in excess of 1, so it'll be 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. I can just see it collapsing because I think we're so fragile. I mean, we are tummy tickle United, or disunited, and the moment the ball goes in, that will be like the catalyst for more for whoever we play. So the idea that we're playing Villa at the weekend and it'll all be rosy and we'll turn it around, this is beyond naive. Utterly beyond naive.
And based on coaching ability, I ruled Thomas Frank out of any potential Tottenham job at the weekend, because anybody that's beaten twice in a season by Ange Postecoglou, I want nowhere near my club.
No, I don't mind Frank at all. I respect him. I think he's a nice guy. I think he's got a very decent little number at Brentford, and I don't mean that in a patronising way to either him or the football club itself. But I think the idea of just shouting out his name with no gravitas, no weight to any argument doesn't make any sense. And I think getting him out of Brentford, he would need to do an Ange and steer them into and toward the relegation zone. Straightforward as that. But no, he's done very well there. But I see no evidence. And as you say, getting stuffed by Chunky twice doesn't bring you a recommendation.
So yeah, I'm sure we will be having a similar conversation on Monday. Hopefully, our old sparring partner Tony's back from the death to
Yeah, I mean, listen, at his age, transitioning into a woman was never going to be straightforward. There's lots of moving parts. And I understand. Lidl, Middle Isle have helped out with some of the surgical equipment.
Well, maybe
so everybody's pulling. Say what?
Rick Harlison could give him some tips. Neither Tony or Rick Harlison are currently welcomed in Donald Trump's America, because there's only two sexes: men and women,
and no pigeons.
No
pigeons. That's it, folks. Listen, we've really enjoyed this. We hope you have too. Don't forget to press like, because you must have liked it. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, because it's well subscribable. This is. But until we meet again, good luck.
And thank you for the lovely comments, all you Australians.
Yeah, and don't forget, we will be up at 3 a.m. to harvest the love.
And to delete them.
That's it for now. Goodbye. There we go.
Look what I've had next to me the whole of this broadcasting.
Oh, is it Luna by any chance? Oh.
So she's been sat in the Winchester chair all and she's proper
next to your Fortnum & Mason basket.
Yeah.
There we go.
Look at her. That's what you call living the high life.
That's what they call the VIP lounge.
Yeah, she gets a bit queasy and nervous every time we start talking about South Korea. She fears being the ingredients of the future.
Put away the sauce, Dad. Put away the sauce.
The future ingredient of a Paris baguette.
Very salty, very sweet. Try one today.
Can you imagine